Guys, there's some major news regarding the NFL draft that is being kind of floated out there, and I find it interesting, all of which will impact the Detroit Lions at 6. And let's, Braylon, start with the Titans and the Raiders. Apparently, they are talking to the Cardinals about trading up to get that number 3 pick. So the Titans and the Raiders, two teams that want a quarterback, are talking to the Cardinals at 3 about potentially moving up to get their quarterback. And then you have this report saying that buzz around the league has the Colts. They are going to draft Will Levis. Will Levis at 4. If the Titans and or Raiders are able to move up to 3, you are talking about quarterbacks 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Richardson's will be third then, because that's what those two teams will go.
Or Levis. Richardson or Levis.
I think Levis is locked in over with the Colts. Who the hell else wants him except the Colts?
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where, well, let's talk about the Raiders first. When you talk about Jimmy G, we know Jimmy G is a stopgap quarterback for the Raiders. Also, it's a quarterback that knows the system, knows Josh McDaniels, knows they're familiar with each other. And at the end of the day, he's not going to do too much to mess you up. So it's a good stopgap quarterback, but you need a quarterback. Like, you know what division you're in. Like, Jimmy Garoppolo not beating Patrick Mahomes. Like, he's not beating Justin Herbert. And the verdict is out on what happens with Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. So they're like, we got to get one of these young quarterbacks. So they feel good enough for what they've seen. They want to move up. Cardinals don't need a quarterback. So, I mean, it's a good situation. But moving back now,
they do need a quarterback. They just can't afford one now.
Yeah,
they would love
facts.
if they didn't sign Kyler Murray.
Are you talking about
they were taking a quarterback,
Mr. Temper Tantrum?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but now you got 4 quarterbacks going
stuck.
back to back. Now it's once again here are these dream scenarios that we've talked about as Detroit Lions fans for the better part of January till now. Well, here you go. All 4 quarterbacks are going, so you will have an option, Will Anderson and then Jalen Carter. But now all of a sudden, Jalen Carter is no longer the sure pick.
It is interesting, Maz, is it not, if quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, and 4 in this draft?
Well, listen, there's another thing that says the Texans, Peter King reported that the Texans might not want a quarterback at number 2. So what does that do?
So I could see that.
Will Anderson?
Just play me out here. Yes. Yeah. Their head coach is DeMeco Ryans.
Correct. Defense.
A defensive guy. Unless you are in love with a quarterback, you're not just taking quarterbacks to take a quarterback. You have to believe that guy is a franchise guy, 8 to 10 to 12 years.
Yeah.
If you don't believe that, and if you're sitting there being DeMeco Ryans, this is at least 2 years before you really get going. 2, 3 years potentially. You've got a lot of work to do. If you can get one area of your team, a building block around that guy, I mean, I'm talking Will Anderson Jr., to be paired up with DeMeco Ryans and change that Texans defense first, well, then you come back next year because you're not going to win many games this year, and you get your quarterback in next year's draft. I don't hate that. If you don't believe in one of these guys at the top.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the best case scenario, and here's the thing about it, if you look at it from a quarterback/DN point of view, if you miss on Will Anderson Jr., worst case scenario, he's the guy that gets you 11 sacks a year. Like, he's not the guy that's getting you 18. He's not the guy that's first team All-Pro. But he's getting you 11 sacks a year. He's getting you 11.5. And eventually you decide if you want to pay him in 5 years or blah, blah, blah. Worst case scenario for one of these quarterbacks, you'll be looking for another quarterback in 2 years. That's the worst thing. So if you're DeMeco Ryans and you come into a situation, hey, look, I don't know if we really like any of these guys, man. Let's take Will Anderson Jr. We're still in the division that's heating up. The coach should be good this year. Jacksonville now owns that division. The Titans are better than the Texans as well. You can organically tell DeMeco, hey, look, don't worry about year 1. This is going to be a 4-year process. We trust in you. We have you in here. We're not trying to win right now this year. We're trying to start putting pieces in play because we're looking for Caleb Williams. We're looking at how to get to Caleb Williams. So I can definitely see the Texans doing that. These quarterbacks, there's so many questions.
They have Case Keenum right now.
It's so many questions with these quarterbacks. Like, with Anthony Shelton, his accuracy, the lack of reps. Will Levis, the lack of reps, going to different schools, juicing up. Like, he's big as I don't know what. He never leaves the gym. Bryce Young, is he going to last? Is he going to be able to sustain the hits being so small? So I think you keep hearing so many excuses on why not to draft a person. Eventually, you're like, I mean, Will Anderson, 12 sacks a year, is that so bad? And then try to get Caleb Williams next year.
Listen, man, you're not going to the season with Case Keenum as your only hope. You can't. They got to take a quarterback. You pick it at number 2. There's 4 good quarterbacks out there.
They still got Davis Mills.
I don't know if they have him anymore.
Hey, by the way, Maz, I do think they're taking a quarterback. I just can understand if they did it that way.
No, I
the
get
Will
it.
Anderson
and the report's
route.
out there.
Yeah, the Will Anderson
It speaks
route.
for itself.
I could understand it at least.
But if I'm D'Amico Ryans, I'm taking my quarterback.
But that's the thing, Maz.
It's my first year.
I get it, but what if it's not your quarterback? Like, I think that's a very, very fragile space. Because yes, you want a quarterback, you need a quarterback, especially to compete nowadays. You got to get one of these electric quarterbacks that can take over a franchise, like you've seen with Herbert and other guys. But if it's not one of these guys, and this is my first pick, and I'm a defensive-minded coach, I'm like, hey, look. I don't know if I trust Anthony Richardson. I know I don't trust Levis. I don't know if I trust Bryce Young. But I do know Will Anderson was the best player in the country last year. I do know we said he was going to be the number 1 pick this year. I do know, although he had an off year, still had 12 sacks this year. I do know he's going to be a damn good player. And Alabama players technically always pay off in the NFL. So if I'm looking at it from that point of view, like you said, it's my first draft. And if I get a Pro Bowler first pick out the gate, and Will Levis is a dud, Anthony Richardson is a dud, I'm not looking like a genius. And oh, by the way, we still can get Caleb Williams.
Hey, look, when we had the Knucklehead brothers here running things, and they took Jeff Okudah instead of Tua or Herbert, they were on their last leg. So we knew they're going to screw the pooch. They're not taking a quarterback because a rookie quarterback wasn't going to save
Not
their
going to help
ass.
you win right away, right?
This guy is fresh starting. You take your quarterback.
And again, another aspect to throw into this, the Texans have fired their coach for the last 2 years after 1 year.
Yeah.
Right.
If I'm D'Amico Ryans, are you sure you're getting a second year? Are you sure you're getting a third year? So you got to keep this in mind as well. You're trying to win as many games as you want now. There's a lot that goes into it when you're the head coach of the Houston Texans. That I can tell you.
This is true. I 100%. I just think there's a lot of questions. I think there's too many questions. And look, there's always going to be questions about players, no matter what. Like, even back in the day, there's questions about Dan Marino. There's questions about Jim Kelly. It's always questions. But they have bodies of work. I don't mind questions when there's a body of work. Like, when there's a body of work to point to say, hey, look, this guy was really good. I'll give you an example. Russell Wilson. He had a great body of work. ACC, they won the ACC title, was there. He won the Big Ten title, had passing yards, touchdowns. He had rushing yards, showed you was smart, high accuracy. But there's questions. Not a big arm. Throws a lot of pop flies. Is he too short? There's always questions. But when there's questions, concerns, and no film, and no stats, that's why I struggle. And that's why C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young, they look better and better every day just because they have national championship pedigree. They have Heisman Trophy pedigree.
Guys, Jalen Carter is only visiting top 10 teams. He will meet with the Bears today. It's a second visit for the Chicago Bears.
Told you, he ain't getting by them.
The Bears were rumored to take him at number 1. Yeah. They have since traded the pick. They've gotten a bunch of picks, 2 firsts, 2 seconds from trading out of that number 1 spot, and they still might get Jalen Carter at 9.
Can't let that happen.
But my goodness, Bray, that is incredible if Carter is on the board at 9 for them.
I'm going to give him some advice, and I know, who am I to give Jalen Carter advice? Well, I'm somebody that got drafted number 3 overall. When you're going top 3, top 5, top 10, you're only going, or you're only accepting interviews from people in the top 10. Like, when I was coming out, I saw San Fran flew me out. They were 1. Miami brought their whole team to come see me after the draft. They were 2. Never talked to Cleveland. I wish I did. 4, Chicago flew me out. Minnesota 7, they flew me out. And then Detroit 10, I was already here. So I just drove the car to Allen Park from Ann Arbor. But that's because everything was steadfast with me. Like, I didn't have any questions. I didn't have any concerns. I didn't have anything off the field. I didn't have any injuries. So I knew I was going that high. Why am I talking to 12? Why am I talking to 20? With Jalen Carter's situation, right now, people are wondering who you are. Right now, people are wondering, was this a 2-time thing? Is this something reoccurring? Are there other issues? Is there something else going on? He's got to diffuse a lot of these things. He's got to put himself in front of people so they can see who he is. It's one thing to see Jalen Carter on the screen. It's another thing to be face to face, sit down, talk with him, get a sense of his mind.
Did you see the body cam video this week?
I did not, but that's what I was gonna say. So I would actually interview with teams that are picking 12, 13, 14, 15, hell, 18 for the Lions. Well, I guess they're also 6, but 20, because you don't know who's gonna take that chance. You don't know if this has knocked people away from you, and you just assume you're going 9. Because you could be waiting like Aaron Rodgers, or you can be waiting even longer. You can wait until the second round. So I would get in front of people, talk to people, let the people get a chance to feel who you are, because it might be a team at 24 to take you. So I would definitely interview some other teams if they had genuine interest.
All that said, if I'm the Lions at 6, I'm telling the Bears, I'm trading this pick. If you want Jalen Carter, come up and get him.